Okay. So, where did that database go? Rokk Around The Clock. So, where did that, to turn myself down here, database go? Well, hello Lee, how are you, my friend? This is very impromptu, to the extent that I'm even having to look at the chat on my phone because I'm working on one screen now since I've set up the new lighting and stuff. Big pro tip, the problem you have is the light from the monitors counteracts the light either side of you. So I've got rid of one monitor, and the one that I work on, or the one that I'm using when I'm streaming, is the brightness is turned right down, which is actually a bugger now that I'm trying to do this, which is to work on an intro video for Up Rokk, not Up Rokk, beg your pardon, Rokk Around The Clock. Now here's the thing, when I had to rebuild my PC, sorry, I'm looking at the screen to the side of the camera, there you are. When I'm, hey Doc, how are you? When I rebuilt my PC, I obviously lost all the projects that I'd set up for all of the videos that I've made for all my intros. Now I think they all still exist on my SSD. I've got to reconnect them basically to Davinci, which is what I use to create the videos. And what doesn't help is the fact that my monitor is really dark, so excuse me folks. That's a little bit better. So what I'm looking to do is to connect that database. And the first thing I need to do is go, you won't be seeing this sadly, because I can only share one screen with you, and that screen is the working window in Davinci. So I'm just doing some stuff in Windows at the moment, and I'm looking for. So if I go to let me see, go to Documents, and Stadia Rocks, and Rokk Around The Clock. I'm hoping. Okay, Rokk Around The Clock, DRA. That looks like a database to me. And that was 8th of January 21. So I'm going to try importing that and see if it lets me. Of course, there probably isn't. That would be an import rather than a restore. So let's go with, close out that, go back to Davinci, and file, import project. Here we go. So what we're looking for here is, that's Rokk Review. I've already got Rokk Review. I need to go back up to Stadia Rocks and Rokk Around The Clock. So why am I looking to do anything with Rokk Around The Clock? Let's see if I pull this in first. Copy a project, call it Rokk Around The Clock. I'm planning on bringing back the show. Right, okay, so this is a classic issue with Davinci. So it's found the project, but as you can see, everything here is red, which implies that I've got to reconnect all of the media files. So shrink everything down a second anyway to make it a little easier. Get the video height down, get the audio height down. It's quite you'll remember, you may or may not remember, Rokk Around The Clock. The intro was a couple of scenes. I think it had Phoenix F1, had me talking about what had been going on in the news. I need to shorten that. I want to bring Rokk Around The Clock back as a much shorter show, and do them a couple of times a week. So I need to edit down that video. First thing I need to do, of course, is to mend the missing videos. So let's get the timeline up. Clips. Oh, hang on. Let's go to Excuse me, hide that, go to edit. There we go. Right, now we're in business. First thing I need to do is to reconnect all of these, all the graphics in the timeline. So, to remind myself, because you don't do this very often, remove selected clips. Relink clips for bin, I think that's the one. Now in theory, these are still here under Rokk Around The Clock. So I've just gone into Windows, where I keep all my stuff. I'm religiously clean when I'm working in folders and files. So none of it's all in over the place. It's all in very nicely kept folders, and which allows me to go back at any point. And right, here we go, it's the media files. So let's see if I can, wowzer. What you do is go all the way back up to the main folder. Here we are, select folder. And then here it goes. Right, so it's found one of 43 clips. One of 43 clips could not be found. Perform a comprehensive search. Yeah. There we go. So we've got some stuff here. Let's just run that and see what we have. So far, so good. Oh, you can see the Windows stuff. I just peered across and saw that you were actually seeing the Windows stuff. There we go. Now the entire I don't know if you can hear the audio from Davinci, but yeah, so that's cool. So just about everything's there. There'll be some missing bits and pieces, but this is an entire show as a project anyway. So it's that first piece. I don't know, it's not actually that long, you know, looking at it again. I mean, it's about 13 seconds, 15 seconds long. 15 seconds is not the end of the world, but when you watch some shows and they have a stinger, it's like, and then, hi, welcome, and what a lot of them do as well is they'll go, hi, so they said it could never happen on Stadia. Let's take a look and see. And then, hi, I'm Rokk, and thanks for watching, and why don't you like, and all that stuff. But I was thinking about this out today. I was playing golf this morning, chaps, which is a rare thing with my dad. But as I was wandering around, I was thinking to myself, one of the problems that we have is that a lot of what has become the visual metaphor in YouTube videos has come from American TV culture, which if you're an American viewer or a North American viewer means a lot to you. All that stuff, you know, oh yeah, very comfortable with that because that's the TV I've always watched. But if you're outside of the States, the only time that you've ever seen any of this is the YouTube, which is different to what you've necessarily grown up with on TV culture. Now, a lot of kids, of course, today have grown up watching purely YouTube, so that is, for them, very comfortable. But folk of my age and not that much younger are used to maybe in their country a different approach. In the UK, there would be an absolutely different approach, a more sedate approach to it. It wouldn't be so bombastic. So I'm kind of in two minds about whether to tone it down. I don't want my stuff. I go out of my way. Look, it's important to always respect visual metaphors and creative metaphors because everything has a language. When you're trying to convey anything creatively, you have to go the way that is it's going to be the quickest to get your message across, right? There's a reason why logos are top left on a website and menus are right underneath. It doesn't necessarily follow that it's the most creative, but it's the metaphor, if you like, for navigation that the world has accepted. And therefore, when you want people to work their way around your website, you need to pay heed to the shorthand. And it's no different with videos. When you're putting this kind of stuff together and doing shows, there are things that people expect. But what we tend to forget as content creators is that our audience is not necessarily watching it all on television. And in fact, look, your stats may be different to mine, but my stats certainly indicate that most of my content is viewed on a mobile device, which means that it's all well and good putting up if you're streaming a game, for example, it's all well and good, like I'm showing you here down in the bottom corner. You know what I look like because you've seen me before and my bigger face. But people that are new to my channel have no idea who the hell that is. That sort of 12 by 12 pixels sat down in the bottom right corner. So you have to think all the time, not just about those creative metaphors and what is shorthand and what gets the message across quickly, but also you have to think about the medium and what works. So for me, I try to imagine most of my audience are on a phone, on a mobile device. And therefore, if I use fonts, I use big fonts. If I show graphics, if I'm showing a screen share, then I beef up the fonts and the type so that people can read it, because it's even worse than that, of course, if you're a YouTuber or a Twitch user, in the sense that you're bringing this around to show you. So, I'm here, all right, that's it. I am occupying 25% of the screen. 2/3, 75%, are you guys chatting. YouTube actually thinks you're more valuable visually than I am. The truth is, of course, because I'm 14 by 9, 6 by 9, whatever it is. There's only that's the font. That's how much you could. If you're going to do 9, that's 6, and that's it. You can't unless you zoom in. Of course, you can put me on the side, and then you get to see the whole of me. And YouTube have experimented with that, so they put the type going to chat going down the side, but that then becomes irritating. I was watching the keynote for Google last night. I was doing it this format, and the chat was coming up and down. Then it's just like, oh, get rid of it. So they can't win. I understand that, but as a content creator, we've got to allow for this fact that our audience is seeing 25% of what we're seeing on our great big 4K screens right in front of our eyes. So, and this is true of any design, any form. Whether you're building a website, see a lot of people build a website and they don't realize that a lot of their audience are, again, either looking at it on their phone or on a tablet or on a small sized laptop screen, and they're working on a massive 4K, 5K, 30 odd inch plus screen. I see that so many times. Do you know who's one of the biggest culprits for that? Is Google. All of the Google apps that I use have tiny fonts, and you just know it's because the engineers have not gone down the whole UI UX route, their user interface, user experience. And that's bad news, man. When you're in your 50s, I don't wear them often, but if I've got tired eyes, I've got really tired eyes today, then I might put these on. These are multifocal, so the very bottom it's magnifies, and then they're completely clear at the top, and it just helps to clean stuff up. But I am an audience. I'm part of it. I'm a socio-demographic that those guys need to consider when they're putting that stuff together with their tiny fonts, because it's a problem. And I will, if I can't adjust the font in an app, then I will either find an alternative way of trying to get my information or use somebody else's stuff. So anyway, back to this. And by the way, hi Dave, hi Holtz. Again, I'm straining a little bit because I'm looking at the chat on my phone here. Yeah, I mean 1080p 4K, it's neither here nor there, frankly, because it's going to be the resolution of the device, right? So whether you optimize it for 1080p, whether you optimize it for 720, whether you optimize it for 4K, it'll be whatever the device is. The key thing isn't to think so much about resolution, but think about the fact that your screen will occupy 25% of the mobile device if and I think you'll find statistically it's the case, most people have it this way around, so they can see the chat, and then they've got tiny, tiny you up here. So, when some people say, oh, it's crap if you're going to stream a game and you can't see the person's face, I would argue that isn't the case at all. Actually, I think Google are right to not bother about introducing cameras into streaming games, because here I am sat down the bottom right-hand corner. You're looking at this massive grey application, thinking that's boring. He's not doing anything with it. Whereas what I should be doing, of course, is, I should be saying to you, you're absolutely right. Let's hide that. Let's get me back up. And now I've got your focus. And interesting, we want to talk about focus. Look at what's going on behind me. So a week ago, you would have seen shelving with all sorts of shit going on all over the place, different lights kicking off and everything. And then it occurred to me, and you do see this. I spoke to a couple of guys the other day that are quite culprits for this. And they have all their stuff going on behind, because it's like, look at me, I'm a gamer. I've got 6,000 games behind me and posters and stuff. My face is what you're focused on right now. If I took my face away and said, and here is a shot of my room with all my gaming paraphernalia, you'd be really pleased to see that. But when I'm talking to you, you're focusing on my face. Yeah. So again, when you're thinking about your shows and putting your shows together, think about that. What are the audience focusing on? If they're looking at the game, then why bother to even show yourself unless you're showing up as 25% of the screen? And for some people, that's really important. If they're watching Dr. Disrespect or a couple of guys screaming over Resident Evil and they want to get the facial expressions, that's fine. Put yourself on cut your background out so that there's much more of the game visible, and beef yourself up. But if you're just playing a platform game and it's irrelevant whether they see your face, get rid of yourself. You don't need you. But even blur can look artificial, and even if and it can be worse, because if there's lots of stuff going on in the background, because it's blurred out, your brain is desperately trying to work out what it is. So I've just gone for simple. I mean, at the moment, I'm zoomed out further than you would see me. If you look at Rokk Review yesterday, what I actually did was zoom in like this, I think. So what you've actually got is a couple of bluish, purplish blocks of colour, and then my face. Now, in the case of Rokk Review, there's 4 other guys or 3 other guys. So, I know that I'm not necessarily going to be the focus. But what I do is I make sure the microphone's quite close, and I beef the gain up without too much distortion, and my voice now becomes the focus, because as a host of that show, I need to be in command. I need to be able to stop a conversation if I need to move on for something else, or if I need someone to say something that hasn't been able to jump in and say what they need to say. So my voice becomes the focus rather than my face, you see, in a panel show. And again, a lot of people make the mistake, particularly with a panel show. People may not be tuning in to that panel show for you. Most of the time they probably are, because you're seen as part of that. But a lot of the time they're tuning in to see those other people. And then, you just get this wall of faces. There's all sorts of ways of tackling it, but all I would say is think about what your audience, 1, think about the medium and what they're going to see. 2, think about what they want to see, and then focus on that within the design. So Rokk Around the Clock, let's get back to Rokk Around the Clock. So Rokk Around the Clock is a voice, it's my voice only, always was, will be. You don't have my face ever in it, because the focus of the games that I'm saying, or the news that I'm saying, is coming up. So let me go back to the show. So obviously when we run the intro, there's no need to show me. Actually, I'm hidden away. There I am, look. But I'm not important to this. And this show, when I was live with this show early part of this year, I'll just pause it there because the voice comes in. One of the biggest shows for me in terms of audience. I'm really sad that I ran out of energy and had to kill it off, because I was getting 600-700 views a show. One show had a couple of thousand views, and I was putting one out a day. So my stats were going through the roof. Subs were going out really fast and everything, and I couldn't keep up with the workload. But I'm really keen to bring it back. The pre-record is so important. So just looking at this project, what I need to do, guys, is let's focus on this. I don't know if you guys have ever used. I don't know if you guys have ever used Davinci Resolve. It's free. It's open source. I say it's free. The basic version is free. But what you get with the basic version is pretty much everything. And it is like the Photoshop of video creation. There's so much going on. To be fair, it's scary. And there are hours and hours and hours of tutorials for this. But yeah, there's Adobe Premiere. I mean, I've got them all. After Effects, the whole works. In fact, this intro sequence was created with After Effects. And then I imported it into Davinci. But I personally, I mean, I've been using Photoshop since literally Photoshop 1, but I'm not a massive fan of Adobe. I use an application called Affinity Photo for my graphic stuff. I've got, I mean, I obviously we pay Adobe licenses. I could have all of the applications running whenever I want. I mean, we've got several 50 bleeding quid a month licenses. But I personally prefer Affinity Photo because for me, at my turn of life, I don't want to be spending weeks learning an application like I used to when Photoshop first came out. I mean, I literally read the manual from cover to cover twice. I was determined to know that puppy. It is. Davinci's a really intimidating layout, Dave. You're absolutely right. And you can turn a lot of this stuff off, of course, but it's like all these applications, there's so much to it. There's Fusion, which allows you to create all sorts of amazing effects. There's an amazing color, I don't know what you call it, section, which not only allows you to adjust color, it allows you to apply all sorts of amazing 3D stuff. I mean, all that pinning text to a moving vehicle and all that. You can do all that stuff in this. It's got an amazing audio suite. I mean, it's just huge, this thing. Absolutely huge. And then they have like a baby editing option, which is for really quick cuts, just to kind of get an idea over. And you'd know more about this, Dave, being kind of the video work and direction that you do to me. I mean, I've edited video for decades, but I don't tend to get. So the free version covers all of this that you've seen. I don't pay for this. I haven't got the paid version. The paid version just gives you more effects and things like that, and to be fair, more pro level stuff. And it's by an outfit called Black Magic, who are famous for create kind of video editing hardware, really. And they bought a company that initially produced this as software for their hardware tools, and they realized that actually if they gave it away, it would get their name out there, and it really has been successful for them. So here we go. So my creative thinking thus is that actually that first 15 seconds might be okay. I mean, I could clip it back. I could take it all the way back so that we just come in at about this point. And that would give us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it'd be about a third of the time, which might be enough. Might be enough. And then there was this long kind of there's music here which hasn't found the music, but I'm not worried about that. I'll replace the music. And then there's me doing my voiceover voice. But that I don't know that a lot of this. Okay, so look. Cool stuff. So most of that could go. I could launch straight into what the news was for the day, because I'm thinking again doing like a bite-sized thing, not a short, because those, when you can get tons of views on shorts, but they're less than a minute long. So from purely getting eyeballs on your stuff, And if you think about it, they work from YouTube's perspective, because they're after a whole TikTok, Instagram-y kind of feel with shorts. But from a creator's perspective, there's no time to place ads around them. Nobody's going to bother to subscribe to you because you've got a short of some bloke mounting a goat. There's no aspect or interest in you as a creator, right? So from a content creator's perspective, the only thing they do is lure eyeballs. Now, if you're building towards monetization and you're trying to get your 4,000 eyes, then okay, fair shout. If you can get a few of those out there, they all add, don't they? But when you hit monetization, I genuinely don't see the advantage. So the advantage to YouTube is obvious. They're trying to get all of those people that have been lured out to TikTok and everything else, even to the extent they've just thrown $100 million out there to try and lure some of the bigger name creators into getting into it. But I don't know. I mean, I've been following it. They've actually been doing them for a couple of years now. It's just that they've become a thing. They've become more well known in the content creating arena over the last few months. But from a monetized, and you're all aiming to get there, don't pretend you're not, but from a monetized creator perspective, I can see how it'd be useful just to show that you've got some numbers. But I don't see where the revenue comes for you. I mean, Rokk Review, Rokk Review at the moment is my only show. Last night's numbers weren't great. I mean, they were great. Yeah, they were nice. Don't get me wrong. 25, I think we had a kind of an average of 25, 26 views. By the time it had finished, there was maybe 160 views. But I think the show deserves more than that. I'm not saying this sounds arrogant. I don't mean it that way. I think that it actually, as a show, it's not, most of my stuff isn't just like everybody else's stuff. I tried to do something different. Rokk Review is built around the community blog reveal, and when it ain't there, it's all about us guys having a laugh, which is a great thing. So I'd like to see get more. But just to put it into perspective, I think I made about £1 in super chat, super stickers. And from an advertising point of view, one, it was live, and YouTube is not a massive fan of live. YouTube likes pre-record because it knows what it's got. By the time it's processed the video, it's had a look at the content, it knows who it's going to appeal to, it knows how to promote it, and it knows which advertisers are going to be happy with it. But live doesn't know till it's finished. And YouTube know that the live stuff has attracted most audience at the point of being live, because it's your fan base, right? So they know that it's never going to get the same level of interest once it's gone live. So Rokk Review doesn't do well from an ad revenue perspective. I mean, if I make, I don't know, £1.50 a show, I'll be lucky. So that was £2.50 of an hour's worth of stream time and an hour's worth of effort. That's basically putting me at less the day rate of the lowest paid person in India. That's how I look at this stuff. We're out there giving YouTube a ton of money around free content. They've not had to pay you or me. And Dave, you mentioned about their terms saying they can put ads on unmonetized videos. They've always done that. They did that for me. They did that to you. You've just never noticed because they don't tend to show it when it's your own content. But they're making money on, most people don't get to monetization. They don't. It's hard work, as you guys know. They put the bar so high. 4,000 views. I've forgotten the numbers now. Was it 1,000 subscribers? Oh, I can't remember. Anyway, the bar is high, and they set it high on purpose because they know most people won't bother, and yet they will still make ad revenue off of it. And there we are, putting in 2 hours, 3 hours worth of effort and whatever, and getting a couple of quid for it. It's, so you've got, I suppose, the big cake, right? There's the big cake. And that's the amount of people that never get monetized, right? And there's that bit left now. Then there's that bit that gets monetized but never gets beyond a couple of thousand subscribers, ergo they might make about 700 quid a year. And then at the very, very top, there's the guys that are able to chuck in their job and do it as a career. And even then, with the way that fashions change and tastes change, you know, if somebody's hooked into Destiny and they've got 300,000 subscribers and they've chucked their job in, and then 5 years into Destiny, Bungie says, well, we're not, thanks, Dave. Yeah, I was right, wasn't I? So, yeah, you know, 5 years into Destiny. Don't forget, Bungie said 10 years was the length of time they would be investing into Destiny. And I think we're now 2 years left of that. So if you've gone and created your world around an island called Destiny, and in 2 years' time, Bungie says, thanks for the fish, guys, we're now moving on to this new IP. You could move to the new IP, but chances are people will go to people that are there already doing that stuff. So your island's gone. I tell you, there are much better ways to make money. Don't do this for the cash, boys. Do not do this for the money. But anyway, what it does do is it allows us to get creative. It allows us to build confidences. That's what it's been for me, building my confidence, really. Believe it or not, incredibly, I'm one of those, what do they call it, introvert extroverts? I think we all are, aren't we, in this field? A lot of us are. There's a few of us that at least appear to be very extrovert. But I think most of us, in truth, are probably intro-extro. I am. I will run a million miles away from a networking do, a business networking do. Yeah, Dave, well, you should do pre-recorded stuff. I mean, that's your skill base, mate, quite honestly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, your skill is in the writing and the editing and the producing and the directing. You should be doing pre-recording. This is perfect for you. And in terms of building your audience base and future monetization, that I think is a more surefire bet for you than doing live stuff. I'm even coming around to it, as you've seen. You know, this Rokk review could well be my last live show, because this stuff, this pre-recorded stuff is where it's at. And also for me, I mean, as you know, for various reasons, it's difficult for me to work very long hours in the day anymore. So I need to be able to jump in and work sort of in the morning, really. And doing these kinds of shows, these pre-recorded things, they allow me to do that. Yeah, so that's 100% the way forward. That said, absolutely you can be a huge success live streaming. I don't think Dr. Disrespect's ever done a pre-record that I've ever seen. Ninja, these guys do exist. And you don't even have to be the world's best in Minecraft or PUBG either. You just have to be somebody that people feel an affinity towards. There's a lot of people out there who they see you and I as a friend. We've never met them. They've never met us. But they look at us and say, you know what? If I ever met that guy, I'd love to buy him a drink. I'm sure we'd be really good friends. And they're probably right. They're probably correct. And that's, so if you don't have a great personality that people can magnetize towards, then you better hope you're one of the best Minecraft players. Because I'm crap at games. Well, I'm not crap at games. What I'm crap at, in truth, is doing what you guys do. And you know what I'm talking about. And that's playing and talking to the audience. I can't do that. Look, I've just sat here for I don't know how long with the same screen because I can't do the multitask, talk to you and stuff. And I didn't set about with an objective here. Actually, my objective was to see if I could resurrect the project for Rokk Around The Clock because it had gone when I built my PC. And thank God it's here. Interesting to see Love on Mars MP3s disappeared though. That was a nice piece of music. So that'll be over here under music. Yeah, there it is. Let's see if we can. Now the reason probably is that it may have come across from another project, and and therefore relink. Let's try this. Yeah, it may come across from another project, in which case, let's just try from here. Select this folder. Let's see. Ah, it found it. There you go. Ta-da! So I'll play that and see what that sounded like. Ah, yes. I don't know if you can hear this, by the way. Apologies if you can't hear it. Do. See what a difference. What a difference it makes with the audio, with the music. And I mate, I am so anal about choosing the music for my stuff. I spend, I bet you, I don't know, hours auditioning music, because it has to be stirring, it has to convey, and it has to have a beat. It's not just, so many people just go to the free libraries and pick the third one in. I actually pay, who is it? I use Envato, I think it is. It sounds like Elgato. But yeah, well, through my company, we pay for licensed stuff, and it's just millions and millions of bits of music, and I'm really, but this works so well. And I think half of the success of this show was that intro leading into this piece of music and then that voice. And I'm actually, the more I think about this, the more I think I might keep it. So there's that, which is a completely different piece of music. Then we go into what this says. What that says is something amazing's about to happen. That piece of music is uplifting. It's good news music, all right? And the minute you hear that, you think, oh, what's he going to talk about? What's going to happen here? I'm assuming you guys are hearing this, and turn the music up on here, sound up on here. Relink, let's try this. Yeah, it may come across one of the point. Well, you're hearing my little background music, which is something new in Restream. And who else is doing it? I noticed. Restream. Oh, Prism Live Studio. Which Andy, who's in the chat, thank you, my friend. You reminded me about Prism the other day, and I went back and had another look at it. I'm sure Prism was an app in the day which just allowed you to take your photo and do stuff with it, and then of course they branched out big time. You can hear it. Okay, cool. Thanks, Stephen. Yeah, that works so well. That works so well. I hit gold with that. I might keep this, but see, that's 40 seconds in before we've got anywhere, and 50 seconds. 1 minute. That's a hell of an intro. You see, again, traditional TV, you'd expect that, wouldn't you? It's even worse, isn't it? Because you get, in last week's show, coming up, which you never used to get when I was younger. That's another thing that has been adopted from the States, and it made its way initially through Channel 5 that was well into trash TV, and they picked up all that stuff. It's largely because it's a filler. It fills time. You know, once you start putting in those ad sections, and there's, 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes of a 60-minute show in advertising alone, that leaves you with 40 minutes of content, 5 minutes of which is in today's show. All you've got to do is come up with, 20 minutes worth of stuff. That's kind of where it lives. And they can go out and film, well, on a relatively small budget, and then spread it over 15 episodes with filler and advertising in it. You can always tell, because when you go to Netflix, there'll be a 40-minute show, which means that nobody's going to make a 40-minute show. It literally means it was at least an hour long originally, and then they made it 40 minutes because it needed to be to absorb the advertising. Yeah, Andy's point about audience retention. As I was saying, Andy, I think if you missed a big chunk of the show, mate, if you go back, watch it back later, you'll see me explaining a lot of stuff here. So you will lose an element, except for if they think something amazing is coming up. And in the case of this, that 1 minute of uplifting music, of Channel 4, as Clive calls it, voiceover man voice, and the coming up bit actually did retain, as interestingly enough, the audience figures for these shows were unbelievable. So you can either take the route of, which has become the kind of de facto YouTuber of Marcus Brownlee, one of my favorite YouTubers. I love that guy to pieces. He literally does a 3-second sting and then he's into his content. Kind of works. But this 5-minute thing, because they were only 5 minutes long, of which 1 minute, of course, was the intro and 1 minute was the outro. So 3 minutes of content, but it was sufficient enough to keep people hooked. This is the whole point, Andy, why I brought this up, mate, because I'm looking at it again with fresh eyes after almost 6 months and thinking, do I need to change the format of it? If I bring it back, which I'm looking at doing, do I need to concatenate that? And as much as it is a minute, this I could get rid of. Boom. Okay, then we go in. That'll get this show banned. Interestingly, at this particular show, which obviously was January, there were a lot of the games that we're just starting to see now. It's a long intro, but this one was meant to be a show as opposed to a news show. It was a bit of a filler, frankly. So lots of bilge. Actually, that's the end of the show there. Yeah. So then we get to the end of the show. It's not going to fall over in a second. I've got my new PC coming next Tuesday. Okay, so that was a wrap. So there you go. That was 4 minutes, 24 seconds long, and 1 minute intro. So as I said, literally about 2.5, 3 minutes of content. That's enough. 5 minutes. That was enough to get YouTube to get their hooks into it. I don't know what's stocking. I must have just talked about shows. Let's mute it. Looking back on the January episode. Thank God for all this stock stuff that Stadia throws out. They did some really nice stuff back in the day when you look at these. And they would used to talk over the top. Yeah, okay. So what this is, this is just a template, basically, because this is coming up to the end now, I think. Yeah, so I'd have taken this and filled it full of content, which takes bloody ages. I mean, a 5-minute show, I got it down in the end to about 2 hours worth of work on a 5-minute show. But it was 8 hours to start with. Because it isn't just the sit down at Davinci, it's the whole writing the script and thinking the ideas up and what have you. But yeah, again, I mean, if it was my full-time job, I wouldn't complain. Andy, yeah, this is actually, Andy's saying, is this a video you've already done? No, this is a video that I did back in January, which was Rokk Around The Clock. I'm just revisiting the format. I mean, this is just graphics. I don't think there's anything going on in this video at all. So what I've just basically pulled up here is the bare bones template, which would then have had content stuffed into it. I can't remember if I kept every project The great thing about Davinci's projects is that they're virtually empty. All they are points just links to content, to media assets. So you can store a project for, peanuts. It's not expensive. There's hardly any data in it. So as long as you link to the same assets in the same places, then it all still stays quite nice and small. So yeah, that is the main Rokk Around the Clock. Yeah, well, I don't know, Andy, because I haven't looked at the stats for months. What I do know is, though, that those they're still being viewed, those shows. And what show gets, even the live stuff, you watch it drop off. It doesn't matter. You could do a 10-second show and still only see a 20% retention. It baffles me. And you can sit and clickbait the shit out of them all day long from the beginning onwards if you want to. Don't wait till the end. I'm giving you something amazing. There's a chance to win a game, or wait till the end. I've got the most amazing news to tell you, and you'll still lose them. I think you can get hung up on that stuff, honestly. I mean, the metrics say it's volume plus value, it's consistency, it's, putting stuff out on a regular basis around a similar topic so that nobody's surprised. And if you hit gold and people like what you do, you keep doing it. But that is not what Rokk is about. Quite honestly, I'm not that worried about trying to make my channel the next Ninja or Dr. Disrespect. I have a very good business. I don't need this to make me money at all. What this is about is me being creative, like Dave, for Dave, who has who has a real skill in creative, in writing, in direction, so on. Then putting this together is a way of scratching that itch, right? For me, this is a way of experimenting with applications, with different hardware, with different tools, trying different things, playing with my voice. So I'm not overly fussed about whether I get 20,000 subscribers and a semi-interesting income, which, by the way, 20,000 subscribers won't get you, or building it up to something amazing. I could, and I think if I suddenly found my business had disappeared tomorrow, I reckon I could do it. It sounds arrogant, but I do. If I was totally focused on this, because what I would bring to my creativity is my 30 years of business acumen. So, I don't think I would have a problem doing it, but I'm not doing it for that. It's like you say, Alex, it's about the passion. It really is. I think there are some guys that sit there, bless them, and I genuinely mean this, bless them, and they will stream for 2 hours a game with 2 people watching it, and it breaks my heart to see it. It really does, because they put so much into it, but they don't mind. They go away. They feel like they played and they shared it with a couple of people. And that was cool for them, and that's what they get out of it. And I don't think that's a problem at all if that's what they want. If they want more than that and they're not getting it, then yeah, they need to think about what they're doing and whether they, retention and everything else. Eli, you get better. You get more than 2. What are you talking about? But this is good. The key thing tonight for me was to retrieve that project, which I've done, because as I said to Lee, Cloud Gaming Man, the other day, so many ideas and no energy. And sometimes it actually is a little pro tip from a businessman, and I convey this to my guys, not so much these days because they've heard it so many times, they know now, and they all do it anyway, but in the newer people that come on board and in the old days, and I would watch them, because obviously we develop software and applications and so on, and those are massive projects with so many nodes and so many facets that when you, as a project manager, when you sit at the front end of that and you look at it, you go rabbit in the headlights. What the hell do I do with this? Where do I start? Same with any project. And I always say what you have to do is you have to break the journey down. Break it down. Don't think about the whole journey. Don't even focus on the end. There's all that whole management speak. Think about what does success look. Don't go down that road, because even thinking about what success looks like can be scary. What you need to do is think, what's the first 5 things that I need to do on this project? What's the very first thing? So the very first thing for me bringing Rokk Around the Clock back was resurrecting the template, which I thought I'd lost, which I haven't, which I'm really happy about. And actually watching it back, playing that intro again, has made me excited because of how good it was. And I'm loath to chop that down. I might cut a little bit of it away, but that's the first step in the journey. So now I feel like I've succeeded and I've achieved something, and achievement and success breeds more achievement and more success in any walk of life. If you keep doing things that fail, then you become used to the feeling of failure, and it's a painful feeling, and therefore you stop doing those things. So you need to create mini successes for yourself, even if it's just jumping up on your seat and starting the darn thing. So this has been a minor success, and it allows me now to go away and know that I've got the framework back, that I don't think I need to do huge amounts to it. But what I do need to do is start thinking about what content to put in there. What I won't be doing though, smart. There's a whole ton of them, aren't there? And, there's even something that has, I think it's all but been forgotten, but it was massive in the early days, particularly around the early days of web development. And it was called GTD, Getting Things Done. And it's actually really good. It's the guy that wrote the book was called Dave Allen. I always remember because of the fellow with the finger. It wasn't him. It's a great book. It's not very thick. GTD. And there was a whole movement built around GTD. There were apps that you could buy that were all around GTD. It was really simple. It was based on the premise that the human mind can only sort of keep about 6 concepts in the front of your mind at any one time, which is why phone numbers are only like 6 numbers long, 6 digits long, for example. And so what this guy tried to do with GTD was to get anything beyond those amount of tasks out of your brain. And it was really simple. It was simply that you would look at each task and you would go something like, and it's been a long time since I read the book, but something like, can I do it now? If I can, do it. Can I put it off? If so, until when? And try and put a specific date on it, and then pop it into a folder. In his, we're talking folders back then, but now you do it in an application or the email or something, or a calendar. So if it's something you don't need to do till next Wednesday, put it into an event next Wednesday in your calendar with all the details that you need, and then don't worry about it until then. So it's out of your head. Get it out of your head, right? If you do it now, get it done now, because that gets it out of your head. It's all about getting it out of your head. If you don't need to worry about it now, then put it in the calendar at the date and time that you do need to worry about it, or a couple of days before if you need to do some prep or something, and then you deal with it on the day. And then every day you open up your calendar and you see what stuff you'd preset yourself weeks ago to do based on GTD. And the beauty of it is that rather than keeping all this stuff in your head, I must do that, I've got to cut the grass and I've got to get the car in for the MOT and all that stuff, you offload it into a system so you don't have to worry about it and you can focus on what you need to do on the day, GTD. Strongly recommend reading the book. Last time I bought a copy for everybody that worked for me, and I think it wasn't much. It's like $5 paperback on Amazon. Getting Things Done by Dave Allen. Great little read. Really good book. But just get stuff out of your head. So it starts with things like this, and I keep copious notes of things that I need to do because I can't remember stuff anymore. My brain's turning to Swiss cheese, twists. But yeah, so this is a good first step. I'm happy with this. And then it'll be about content. And the other thing that I want to do, which will require a new set of graphics. Let me just close this down. And the thing about Davinci I love is that if you close it, everything's already saved. But another thing that I want to do is, oh God, that's scary, isn't it? Sorry about that, folks. Let's make him smaller. Other thing that I want to do is resurrect Rokk Review, the portion of Rokk and Ray, and then before that Stadia Rocks, and before that Stadia Rocks Live, and before that Stadia Rocks, as a standalone video. And actually, that's exactly what I used to do before it went to the show with Duncan, and then with Ray as Rokk and Ray. So all I need to do is slap. I might just do. I don't want to call it Rokk Review because obviously I've hijacked that name now for the Tuesday show. It made sense to call it Rokk Review. So it's going to be Rokk Game Review or something. But again, it's going to be focused on casual gamers. The same thing. 5 minutes long. I'm going to try and every new game that comes to Stadia initially, maybe other platforms in the future, cloud gaming, is do a kind of 5-pointer. Is it good value? Is it easy to save? Is it all that stuff, all the usual stuff. Holtz, you say that's scary. So is that why you use 25% of the screen? Sorry, mate. What do you mean? Why do I use 25% of the screen? YouTube in portrait puts you as 25% of the screen, if that's what you mean. Yeah, Ray's here. He's hidden away. You like Ray, don't you? Here he comes. Ray's praise hasn't gone away. It's actually going to be part of Rokk Review. So when we were meant to have a guest yesterday. Caleb J. Ross had been booked and was meant to turn up and didn't. So what we would have done is we would have done that Ray's praise, and then Ray would have said, "Hey, it's Caleb." We wouldn't have gone into the same kind of interview that we did when it was Rokk and Ray because of the time, but it would, yeah. So it hasn't gone away, but stuff evolves, doesn't it? Oh, I see my face. No, it went full screen because I closed down the application, Davinci, and why I did that, I'm just having a little look and see if I go back to the early. So it automatically shoved me up to the top, and I put myself back because I really don't want you to see me full screen. It's a scary thing. So Stadia Rocks, here we go. So I don't know how, you guys probably never watched it when it was a pre-record the Stadia Rocks show. So it had latest news, what's Up Rokk, and Rokk Review games, and it was a whole pre-record thing. And then I decided to do it as a live show with Duncan on a Sunday morning, and then it became Rokk and Ray. So they kind of evolved all these little things, but I would shove them out as little kind of snippets. Here we go, Rokk Review. So I'm just trying to see if I can find. I have a project for it. I must pull that in then. So that's probably just the intro. You obviously not seeing this. Sorry, apologies. Drive download. Rokk's blog bash. No. Rokk's blog bash. I actually prefer it now. It's called Rokk Review anyway. I didn't really like the whole bash. The name, the bash name thing. Stadia Rocks Live. Yeah, see, I may have got rid of a lot of the actual videos because, of course, they're all up on YouTube. And I've no reason to store them locally. but I'm not. Yeah, I mean, as a content creator, I don't get the numbers that I was getting back in the day. I think that's partly because, well, there's a heck of a lot more people in the community now streaming and, you know, doing great stuff, quite frankly. And a lot of my early stuff has never been seen. A lot of the people that would have seen it have all moved on. And obviously a lot of the younger guys that have come along are only aware of my, you know, Rock and Ray or the stuff with Duncan. So all of that early stuff, which is, I think it's a really high quality, I love it, hasn't been seen. So, you know, that's one of the things again of why YouTube say about consistency. If you want to keep your audience, you've got to be consistent. And I've dipped in and dipped out again. I'm not worried. I'm not upset about it. I'm not crying about it, because it is what it is. But, you know, I'm looking here. We've got at the moment 3 people watching this. There are some people in the community who would just do an impromptu and have 20 odd people here anyway, which is great. But that's I don't think I'm ever going to be that kind of a creator, because I don't have the time. I mean, we're going to go back to the office next month, I think. So all of this has been happening around lockdown for me while I've been at home. Now I'm going to have to go back, not full time. I mean, I've already decided that I'm not going to go back to the business completely full time, but I'm not going to have the time to do a lot of what I've been able to do. So, you know, in a way, I suppose I'm preparing myself for the fact that I'm not going to be able to do the kind of quantity of stuff that I've done. Yeah, rock down. Yeah, it's good one. It is what it is, you know. It is what it is. And I said this to Ray. Last week, actually, I think. Sadly, he and I, as much as we've got a great. I mean, we have. I can't believe the audience has been amazing for both of us. But we, as you know, we're at a time of life now, sadly for us, where it's becoming harder, physically, mentally, to do it. And he said the same thing. He's finding he's slowing down as well. It's hard. And we just said 20 years ago, if we'd have been into this 20 years ago, who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Probably nothing, to be honest with you. But anyway, we can dream, can't we? I can't find any of the old content. I think I've probably just cleared it out for space. It takes up masses of hard drive space. And don't know what happened there. I screen went. I'm back. Right, probably going to let this go now. Oh, got a few more people turned up. Hello, a few more people. Just having a look for some of my old content, but probably would have been quicker just to have gone to YouTube, quite honestly. In fact, I think I will. So yeah, just saying that back in the day, a lot of what I do now as live stuff was all done as pre-recorded. Here we go. So your channel, D, and luckily it's all in playlists. Stadia Rocks. There we go. So let's have a look at one of these old ones. So this was a pre-record back in, crikey, I don't know when this was actually, a long time ago, probably around March, about a year or so ago, before I did any of the live stuff. Now, this Rokk's Extra was a clip.
Hello, you're listening to Stadia Rokk.
So it was an audio podcast, and then Rokk's
Rokk
Extra
here with the podcast for busy people
was the video version.
As usual, we start with the news, followed by What's Up Rokk, where this week I take a closer look at 4K and whether Stadia can ever actually truly deliver it. Finally, we put Serious Sam through the Rokk review mangle.
The latest news from Stadia.
Let's see when this was.
Subscribers to my channel or Twitter account may have seen a teaser video I published last week announcing something
that was
big
when I went
coming
on
to Stadia. Lots of
I
speculation
forgot
on
it
an
was called
exclusive
Glory of Stadia.
game
It
or
was
feature
really-
release, but on Saturday the 7th of March it all became clear when we launched the TGOS podcast.
Wow, look at that.
A collaboration between Wingy, aka The Glory of Stadia,
There it is.
Raf, aka Raf Gaming, Andy, aka Andy Morphs, and myself, Rokk. Pulled together in just a few days, TGOS podcast is live streamed on YouTube on the Glory of Stadia
Chase, they're
channel
looking-
and aims to
Do I
bring
really
a
need to be
light-hearted
here?
look at what's been happening in Stadia over the previous few days. This week we launched with special guest Chase from Stadia Talk, who brought his immense insight into the commercial aspects of the sector,
So that
not
was
to
all good.
mention good grace and excellent humour. Thankfully, the response to
Again,
show
this was all done in audio, and then I put,
E priced at studio will be working
and then I moved it to YouTube.
progression, but Stream Connect. This
March
means that
17th.
players will be able
so this
to
is back
play.
in March, over a year ago. Oops, there goes my. I don't know why the connection's so crap. So look at this.
Other platforms, beginning with PC, carry their progression across platforms and see their
900
co-op
megs.
teammates embedded video screens during the game itself.
So anyway, a load of old whingy news that was a bit slow. Then
By
there
email.
was
Hello at Stadia.
What's Up Rokk. There he goes.
If you currently stream a 4K movie from Netflix, Amazon Prime or Apple TV Plus, at best you're getting a fraction of the quality achievable.
So this is like a little
from
documentary
a master quality
that I would
4K
run.
disc.
What's Up Rokk.
The bit rate or data per second
Sounds like it's
processed
slowed
and
down,
pushed to
doesn't it?
screen is insane from a disc, and the distance it has to travel is short,
Playback
linear, and free of
Speed me up.
interference. A streaming service has to contend with distance, which is
bet I
never
had
a
slowed
straight
it down,
line,
you know.
and quality of connections along the route, your speed of internet, which is never the
To just
speed
try and
you
pad
pick
out
up
the
down
time.
as well as contention from others wanting access in your region. On top of this, you get a degraded
It was
signal
probably
from
about
Wi-Fi
10%
versus a
slower.
cable plugged straight into your router.
A
So
lot-
even if
lot
those
of work-
services push
lot of work went
audio
into these.
compression that works largely around the fact that our brains are not great at processing fast-moving images. We only tend to see this compression if we take a photo
All
of
of
the
this stuff I
screen,
created, all
pause
these
a
graphics.
second, or if there is prolonged extreme movement across the whole screen, like in snow or rainfall. Also, as we get older, our ability to see the nuances in an image or
So,
even audio
it would
range
literally take me
decreases a
about
massive amount.
6 hours to
Putting
write
these
the script
factors
for this.
together, and the fact
And then
that most films and
probably
TV shows
similar time
only
to
have
pull the graphics
occasional
together.
action, our brains are tricked in data being processed is
Mad.
huge, and again, much hardware need from us, the player, arguably its greatest benefit.
Such great content though, it's all just completely.
Material is
Mothball.
linear and never changing. They're able to push the first few seconds of the stream to your screen to watch while higher quality video is downloaded ahead of time to replace it.
I should just
HD.
clip this bloody stuff and shove it out again.
Stadia doesn't have the luxury of buffering with a medium that is changing in real time, depending upon the choices we make in our games. There is some incredibly clever compression taking place with an algorithm that even attempts to second guess what the user may do next in order to pre-render the action. But this is all still happening in near real
Tell
time.
you what, it's like a bloody
there is a
Discovery documentary. And then there was the the Rokk review towards the end. So yeah, as I say,
It's
latest
the
news.
first game in the bundle.
Oh, look, there's me.
Each of the 3 games making up the complete bundle mark a progression of the game engine and story.
Serious
And
sound.
I may revisit the game in a future episode once I've
Audio.
completed
It was
the other 2.
done for an audio podcast even. So it was.
Firstly, how fast?
And I
does
was
the game
learning my
learn?
craft.
The answer is very,
So
very
at
quickly.
that point, I wasn't
Serious Sound
being as
had its
natural
roots
with my
back at
voice
the
as I am
time of
now.
The very first crop of first-person
probably a
shooters,
tiny
where
bit put
simple
on.
lag, with the exception
bit.
of Spittlings, which
But yeah, it does sound a little bit different. And I also think I genuinely think I probably slowed it down ever so slightly as well.
to the same place over and over. It's a standard mechanic in this sort of game.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I want to try and make these little Rokk review things. So there you go. So much work in that. They were only 20 minutes long, but they would take me just hours and hours and hours. Hours and hours. But I was very proud of them. Very proud of them. Yeah, you can't help but be self-confident, self-conscious of your voice, can you? Or how you look. I mean, it's just. For a start, we're all looking at ourselves. It's actually really hard to do this without looking at yourself, isn't it? I find. Maybe it's just me. Rokk Attenborough. Yeah, but his voice is a higher level, and he speaks as if he's about to drop off to sleep. David Attenborough. I noticed Stephen Fry's in Biomutant earlier. I was watching an IGN gameplay video, and it's old Stephen Fry. They pull him in for a lot of that stuff. He's very good at it. Anyway, there you go, ladies and gents. Genuinely was an impromptu, this, by the way. I'll be completely honest with you. I was lying down upstairs trying to go to sleep because I felt so bad, so tired. And then I thought, I wonder what it would be like if I moved the light to the side of me so that it doesn't necessarily shine behind, because it was Rokk review last night. I had it in front of me, so it was illuminating my face, but it also was illuminating behind. The effect that you want to achieve is that actually stays relatively dark. So if I turn off these lights here, there we go. So the light beside me is obviously illuminating. There you go. If I turn it away, because I put up a massive black curtain over the whole front window here. And the reason, by the way, you're still seeing my face illuminated is because I have a ring light over this side, and if I turn that one off, oops, there we go. So now I've got the Elgato. If I turn that one off, let's see what that looks like. Turn it off completely. Software driven. Boo. There you go. So even when the Elgato is facing away from, and all that you're getting here now is the monitor illumination. And I said right at the top of the show that I've taken away one of my monitors, and this one I've set it so that it's only ever on 30% brightness, which is still too bright. This should be black without the lights. You shouldn't be able to see me. If I take this to the lowest setting, there you go. That should be. But the problem I have here is if I'm like what I was doing there, creating stuff, and this is, by the way, also illuminated by the phone, which is on beside me. But I can't see what I'm doing if I have it on too dark, when I'm obviously doing some jiggery pokery here. But all of this kind of lighting stuff really matters. So I'll put that one back on. Oh, hang on, let's get rid of the monitor. There you go. Put that one back on. And that's facing away from the rear wall ahead of me, but still bright enough that it's lighting up that wall. You can turn it down, but okay. It's still, that's its full brightness. Look, that virtually bright, it virtually lights the whole room up. So I've been having it at about 16%, and then if I turn it back on, that's not quite on me. It's actually facing the screen, so I'm getting glare from the side of the light now. Rokk in the dark. that's still too bright. I'll show you why. So take that down to probably about there. Maybe take the blue. Then we'll put the ring light on. There we go. You see how much that's suddenly illuminated? But although it's still getting some light behind me, it isn't too strong. That's okay. All right. And then we can start to introduce the color gels and all that stuff. So let's bring him in. Boom. Now suddenly we've got a nice calming color, or we can go for something really scary. But that's the beauty. I actually quite like it, this kind of neutral color. Even just the white's quite nice. But now the camera's compensating with that light. It doesn't like it. And so it's starting to take away some of the light on my face. So you can get around that by taking away some of the automation that the camera's do. It's automating white balance and stuff. But I'm not going to mess about with it now. Where are we? But all of this stuff takes so bloody long. And then there's people that go, oh, I just use my mobile phone camera and bulb, everybody's happy. But I think you do see the difference when you do it, when it's set up properly. I really genuinely do think you see the difference. Even if it's subconscious. If I take the zoom right out, there you go. So that's actually how far away from the camera I'm set. So I'm zoomed in to get some bokeh, some depth of field behind. But that's too yellow anyway. That's more to do with the ring light, I think. And also the fact that I've not... There we go. Yeah, also the fact that I'm not setting it all up. But anyway, a little insight into how things can go. Let's get rid of that one. I'll let you guys get back to your... One of the things I love about Restream recently, they've really upped their game. It was falling apart on me all the time, and it just works now. But they've got these background video clips which I really love. This is the one that I use here, actually, the one that I use for Rokk Review, because it keys in with the logo. But they've got all sorts that you can flip in, all built-in stuff. There you go. That works really well with the colour, the background colour as well. There's another one that does. Just nice and gentle and relaxing. And when you're just doing this face-to-camera stuff, you kind of want that. And then they went and did this thing of adding in the background audio, which I really love. And it doesn't. They've got chill, hip hop, ambient pop, rock and metal, and classical. Can you hear that? It's lovely, isn't it? Turn that on. Ah, dearly beloved, we're gathered here today. Oh, mate, Alex, I'm just starting season 4 of The Last Kingdom, the final season. Oh, mate, there hasn't been an episode that's gone by when I haven't gone, I love this show. I know you've watched it as well, but what a cracking show. Really good. Anyway, there you go. It's all good, isn't it? Before I go, is there anything that you guys wanted to... it's kind of an AMA. Anything you wanted to ask me at all? Meaning of life? What the hell's level 42? Who's my favourite band of all time? Actually, I asked who would I? I'd have to say the Beatles. I mean, I'd have to say the Beatles, I think, if you're talking about all time. My favourite musician of all time would be Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. But yeah, the Beatles. I don't listen to them that often, but I have done over my entire life. And if you're going to take the impact that a band has had on you your entire life, I think it has to be the Beatles. And they've had such a vast impact on all music. You know, that tiny, tiny amount of life that existed as a band. That's something else, isn't it? Yeah. Musically, I do have a quite an eclectic taste. I would say over the last year, the person I've listened to the most is Sam Smith. I think he is a genius songwriter. Whether you like his voice, I know a lot of people say, "Oh, he's all squeaky." I get that, I understand that, but I think he's an amazing songwriter, and his canon is superb. But then equally, I listen. I tell you, I find myself these days going back and listening to a lot of stuff from my youth as well, a lot of 70s stuff. Gilbert O'Sullivan, who probably most of you guys have never heard of. He was hugely popular in the 70s, but his stuff's really great as well. And thank you, Alex. I think I could have been a teacher. I could have done that. I think. I don't know. The problem is though, teaching is formulaic, isn't it? You know, you've got, as a teacher, it's not like you walk into a room like, imagine being the guy, the old wise fellow in the village, you know, 1,000 years ago, and you would have just imparted what you'd learned in your life to the young people. I'd love to do that, but modern teaching is very formulaic. You're told what is to be taught in a curriculum. Having been a school governor for a number of years, I'm not now, but I was when my girls were at high school. You know, I know that teaching these days is all about getting results. It is not that it ever was when I was a kid, but it isn't necessarily about the educational well-being of the child. It's about getting the stats, because if you didn't, the government punishes you. If you don't get the numbers up, if you don't get the grades, then they send in, you know, you get inspected. Ofsted come in, and they deem you an unfit school, and the headmaster gets sacked. There's a whole turnout. It's a horrible process. So their entire existence is more about teaching kids to pass exams than to learn anything. And I've always said that the first couple of years of your educational life, when you're like 5 or 6, they're the only years where you really learn much. The rest of it is just parrot fashion stuff to pass exams. Teach yourselves, folks. Teach yourselves. Stephen Fry's got an amazing voice. An amazing voice. Yeah, Dave, you were just saying there about listening back on yourself. You know, you happen to have a regional accent, which actually is one of the most respected regional accents from this country in the world. Manchester, Mancunian, or, you know, that sort of northwestern accent. So you don't. I mean, I should have a really rural Devonian accent because of where I live, and also how both my mum and dad sound like farmers. I've no idea why I don't, but which is quite odd. But yeah, don't get hung up on it. Honestly, you know, again, think about some of the most what happened over the last 20 years. Was, of course, the BBC. Well, firstly, ITV, which originally, as you know, was a bunch of licenses around the UK, and one by one, Granada bought them all, and so ITV now is very much run out of, you know, the northwest, and equally, the BBC. A lot of the BBC was moved up to, particularly most of the radio, to the northwest as well. So now, when you listen to Radio 1, a lot of the guys on there have have your accent. So just like that kind of Jafracan London accent, which has come to the fore over the last 10 years, has become almost de facto when you hear a London or sort of mid-southern accent. The Mancunian accent has become quite, particularly, you watch any of the main drama outputs of ITV now, it will be northern actors, a lot of them actually from Yorkshire in fairness, but nonetheless across the spread. And I think it's a great thing, actually. I think it's a great thing that it's not all about perceived English, you know. Yes, well, when I used to take my dog for a walk and all that stuff, it's now become much more about the regional accent. So don't feel, for God's sake, don't feel cringy about it. It is your accent. And actually, in a world where you have to be able, people have to know instantly, oh, that's Dave from Codex or whatever. So, you know, apart from visually, and this changes. My face today is different. We saw it just now. My face today is different to the face that you can see if you go back and look at my content a year ago. But my voice hasn't changed. Your voice doesn't tend to change. So if you are intending to do voiceovers for documentaries and so on, then it's great that it's distinctive. It's definitely nothing to feel. You shouldn't let it worry you. Should not let it worry you. Honestly, Holtz, The Last Kingdom, I don't know why I never picked up on it, because it's a period, the whole post-Roman, pre-medieval period, that fascinates me. And this is what this is about. And actually, I mean, there's some artistic license in there, but actually there's a fair chunk of it that is historically on the money. I've really enjoyed it, and it's a well-written show. Actually, one of the main characters, Canute, Magnus somebody, was interviewed by Ray and Callum on their show a while back. At that point, I hadn't seen the show, so I didn't bother to watch it, but it's like, wow. And your accent as well, Stephen. I love the Liverpudlian accent. I think probably my favourite accents in the UK are, I love the northeastern Geordie-ish area. I love that accent. I love Scots. I actually quite like Mancunian. I like Liverpudlian. There's not many accents I don't like. I guess I don't like the one from the region I'm in, probably the least. Yeah, I do as well. I love history. I'm so pleased. I went to see my daughter last night. She's, as you know, she's on an archaeological dig about an hour and a half's drive from where we are, in an amazing part of the world, down in along Chesil Beach in Dorset, which is a genuinely... My daughter, my youngest, was with us, and she'll tell you, I was driving along going, look at that, wow. And it felt like I was driving into an episode of The Last Kingdom. It just looked like it. Actually, The Last Kingdom was filmed in Hungary, in the main, I found out. But it looked amazing. And it was lovely to see her as well, bless her. And but you know, there's just something about, for me, the fact that you can, it's like a time machine. You're unlocking a time machine, isn't it? And you know, you're learning about stuff that has long gone. And of course, the sad thing is that the hey Lavelle, the sad thing is that most of, certainly pre-Roman, there's nothing written down. So, for example, Boudica, who we have mistakenly called since the Victorian times Boadicea, which was not her name. It was Boudica. That was a usual Victorian The Victorians have got a lot to answer for when it comes to history. The fact that we call prehistoric people cavemen, for example, is such a fallacy. They didn't live in caves. They may have worshipped, and they may have celebrated in caves, but of course they didn't live in caves. How many caves do you know? I don't know very many caves. There weren't that many caves around. They would have done what humans have done for as long as humans have been around. They would have followed the herds as nomads. They would have lived in makeshift accommodation, which they would have made in the area that they were staying in while they were culling the herd and getting their food. And they would do a circuit, and sometimes, and very often, when you look at some of the cave paintings, like at Lascaux in France, there's lots of it in France and lots of it in Eastern Europe as well. What you see is, and it's interesting because I even question some of this stuff with my daughter, who's obviously studying history as an archaeologist, and we were talking about, you get those handprints on the walls. So in a lot of the prehistoric cave paintings, you'll have the most intricate and some of the most super detailed pictures of ibex and extinct horses and lions and cave lions and bear and so on. And then they'll have these handprints. And she was saying that the perceived wisdom is that they would do that ahead of a hunt. And I said, think about it, that's not rational. How often did they hunt? Like almost every day. There would be, what are you telling me? They would go in and paint the walls before a hunt. What I think that was, and she said, yeah, that's got some legs. I think what they were celebrating was probably the deaths of some of those hunters. So if a guy gets killed in the pursuit of hunting a boar or a bison, then they would take his corpse back to the cave, put his hand on the wall, and blow ochre or red paint or what have you onto the wall over an image of the animal that he died in the pursuit of, and that in itself was a way of ensuring his existence moving forward. I think that's more likely, because they were hunting every day. How could that? That's like every day before you go to work, you're going to whip out your oil paints and do a painting for the day. It just makes no sense. But the whole interpretation of history changes every single minute, or every week, every month. There's always somebody it's a memory to live on. You're right, Alex. These are people you've got to bear in mind. For the last million years at least, humans had the same ability to perceive, rationalize, understand, question their world around them that we have today. Our brains haven't evolved that much over that period of time. So what we call cavemen and those hideous Victorian images of thuggish looking hairy creatures with no clothes on, which couldn't be further from the truth. In reality, those people were no different to us with their ability to comprehend. So, they asked questions, and there would have been ways and means for them to express themselves. But this thing that she found this week, which is a 60 meter, which is 150 feet-ish long, long barrow, under the ground, and they used a thing called geophysics to uncover it, which is essentially, it's really clever. It's like two electric prods that send a signal through the ground, and then they bounce back up, and they use this to determine solid objects under the ground. Of course, if you've got an old dwelling, an old building, and you're going to have a solid mass, be it rock or wood or something. And so they use geophys to determine this long barrow. And what a long barrow is essentially a large grave, which a Neolithic, and I think this thing's about 3,000 years old, 3,000, 4,000 years old. Neolithic. What they would do is as people died, they would hold a cremation. There would be a funeral pyre, and they would burn them. And that was largely done because they just, they didn't want thought of animals eating them, really, I think. But what they would then do is they would pile earth over the top of the remains. So it's kind of like a burial and a cremation all in one. So cremate them, pile earth on top. Becky was telling me, my daughter, she was telling me though that actually what they also used to do, they believe, is they would take the remains away and they'd like live with them, like spiritually. They'd have them in their houses or something for a while, and then they'd take them back. But anyway, ultimately they would build this long cigar shape, if you like, this lozenge of earth, which was essentially the remains of these cremated individuals from the village, and then they would pile earth up, and then they would go across. This is 60 meters long. You can imagine the amount of individuals that were died over time. They wouldn't have all died at once. I mean, it could have done. There may have been a disease or a war or something, but these typically are. And in the UK, we're aware of at least 40,000 long barrows from that period, Neolithic period, kind of pre-Bronze Age. So it's pre-Iron Age, sorry. So I find all that stuff, that for me, the prehistoric stuff, there's nothing. There's no writing at all. And the Romans came along, and then with people like Tacitus, who wrote about Boudica, and we started talking about Boudica just now. Now she, what we know of her, what we don't know is more important. We don't know when she was born. We don't know if that was her real name. We don't know what she looked like. We didn't know what tribe she came from, and we don't know when she died, and we don't know how she died. So all we have to go on is what was written by the Romans, and a guy called, I think it was called Dyer as well, and he was like a monk, like 400 years later. And then the Victorians, of course, and they did that whole Boadicea, and there's all made up stuff. What we do know is, according to Tacitus, and there's no reason for him to lie, he was fairly meticulous about his detail. We know that she was married to a chief who was almost certainly put in place by the Romans. They had these client states, which interestingly is a mode of operation that still exists today. America still do this, Britain do it to a degree, where if you want to get the best out of an environment, an area, you go in and you basically you offer protection to the leader and give them support and everything else, and they give you a load of their wealth essentially. But anyway, they put this guy in place. She was married to him. He got killed. I think something happened. I'm trying to remember what it was. He upset the Romans, and the Romans up until this point had been fairly benign. They hadn't really bothered the Brits too much. They'd sort of, they were around. They were doing their thing. They were extracting all the wealth, but they weren't. They didn't have to fight. They kind of almost just marched in. Who was the guy that came in? Emperor Nero essentially decided to invade Britain, and he sent in his general. Christ, who was it? I've forgotten his name. He came in. This guy came in with thousands of soldiers and elephants. You imagine, you're a Briton. All right, all you've ever seen are deer, wolves, maybe a lion or two, certainly sort of, cave lion type things. And then these guys come marching in with elephants. Jesus Christ, you would have been scared out of your wits. But anyway, after they invaded, and it was pretty easy to do, they thought the Britons were a real walkover. quite honestly. They thought, nothing to worry about. They were scared crapless of the Scots, the Picts, as they were called then. They were absolutely scared shitless of them because those guys were nutters. They were fearless. But something happened. The Romans started getting a bit funny, and they decided to make an example of the tribe that Boudica belonged to. They basically raped her daughters. They stripped her and they flogged her. They whipped her. Now the thing is that the raping, and you see this today in the Congo, for example, isn't so much about the sexuality. It's about the humiliation. It's about saying that this is how little we think of you as a human being. And needless to say, Boudica, who was clearly a psycho from what we know, decided that wasn't very good. She ended up pulling an army together from the various tribes of well over 100,000 warriors, and went on the rampage and just destroyed everything. Any town they came across that had anything to do with the Romans, they wiped them out. I mean, butchered them. And they sent in the 9th Legion, the Romans, which was their SAS. It was their elite Roman garrison to sort her out. And this amazing story. So the 9th Legion marched down from the north, and they think it's going to be a walkover. Boudica comes up over the hill with her 100,000, and even before the Romans had a chance to do all their amazing trickery with shield walls and hedgehogs and stuff that they did, they wiped them out. They just went mad on these guys, wiped out the 9th Legion. That had never been heard of in Rome. Rome never lost. It never lost a conflict. Anyway, they doubled down, and they weren't having any of this, and they sent in the crack troops, and eventually, I mean, again, as I said, we don't really know what happened to Boudica. Tacitus, who by all accounts was not much of a lover for the ladies, and tended to write disparagingly of most women, in fairness. So, as much as his writings clearly respected her as a military leader, he also probably undermined a lot of her capabilities, and kind of sort of wrote about her as if she was a beast, and it was all some nasty stuff. But he writes that she killed herself by poisoning, which they also wrote, the Romans, about Cleopatra. And we don't think that she did either. We don't think Boudica did either. And the reason that they would write that was that it was seen as an act of cowardice to kill yourself for a military leader. So if you're going to write about the demise of a military leader, you're going to write about the fact that they killed themselves, because it says, well, they weren't very good, were they? Truth is, we don't know. She may have lived to a ripe old age. Or she may have been killed in battle, or there may have been internal fighting. We genuinely don't know. What we do know is that the Romans definitely took control back, and they doubled down, and they were here until about 400 AD, I think, which is only 400 years before the point of the Last Kingdom, which is set at the end of the 9th century, so about 880 to 899, when Alfred died. King Alfred died in 899. That's a fairly accurate rendition of King Alfred from what we know as well in the series, who I actually really like I think the actor is superb, and I think he's really good, actually. Very charismatic. He pulls off the whole king thing so well. And the character as well, I really like. And there's every reason to believe that is fairly accurate in terms of the man. He was very well, he's known as Alfred the Great. He was well known and well liked. So that's accurate. But that's only 400 years. And this is amazing, since the Romans had left. And the Romans, when the Romans left, and they left because they ran out of money, simply. I mean, what they'd done is the Romans had, they'd spent an absolutely eye-watering amount of money in taking control of Europe and parts, and a lot of Africa as well. And I mean, literally, they were virtually bankrupt. So what they cleverly did, very cleverly did, was they used religion as a control mechanism, which allowed them to remove a lot of their armed forces. So they discovered they could put churches and, use a lot of the teachings of the Bible to keep people in order. And they didn't need to necessarily govern them from an armed perspective. But even then, ultimately, they ran out of money. So they pulled out of Britain. But they'd set the structure up, which heavily relied upon them for trade, for defense, and all of these little tribes that had coexisted actually relatively peacefully under the Romans because they were being fed and watered by the Romans. We'd ended up losing a lot of our cultural inheritance. So, a lot of the pre-Roman stuff disappeared. I mean, there was a small amount of Celts left. Druids were interesting, The Anglesey was where they hung out. And they were hanging out there when Boudica was doing her thing. And they tended to get used as almost a way of, you'd pull the Druids in to settle arguments. They were almost like not a police force as such, but just like a wise council. But they were also well known. The Romans scared shitless of the Druids because they were really spooky. I mean, if you see any of the stuff these days that depicts them with their weird facial makeup and regular slaughtering of animals, I don't think they were, certainly towards the point where the Romans were there, they weren't really into human sacrifice, but I'm sure that's happened or had happened. It was more about animalistic sacrifice. But, all of that culture was disappeared under the Romans pretty much. And a lot of the ancient Britain, the language of the ancient Britons, because when the Danes and the Anglo-Saxons coexisted, their languages weren't far apart. So, like Portugal and Spain are two different languages, but a Portuguese person in Spain would have a fairly good shot at working out what a Spanish person was saying. And that was the same with the Danes and the Anglo-Saxons as well. So the root of the language was very similar. So, there would have been differences, but there would have been similarities as well. And they would have been able to hold a fairly sensible conversation. But a lot of that stuff disappeared under the Romans. The Danes and the Anglo-Saxons weren't part of the Roman period, of course. But the ancient Britons, all of that stuff was wiped out. Which is why we don't know a lot about it, which is sad. It really is quite sad. And what we do know of it was tainted by what the Romans wanted us to know about our heritage. So that's the part of history that fascinates me because there's very little of it documented. So what we do discover can, a tiny, tiny thing. They weren't into writing, so we're never going to suddenly discover some Bible of information. It's never going to happen because it just didn't happen. But it'd be nice. It would be nice to discover maybe some documentation from maybe some other Roman somewhere wrote something more akin. That would have been nice. Some guy like a David Attenborough of Rome, who was just actually interested in cultures and not from the perspective of a conquering nation, and had written some stuff and gone and lived with these people. But it's been lost in time. I mean, there's the Library of Alexandria, which was destroyed, and they say there's so much knowledge that was there, could have existed, but it's all gone. And of course, again, in modern times, around the Iraq War, for example, and the Syrian conflict, a lot of ancient historical and artistic artifacts have been destroyed because they march in and say, this is against our religion, and then this just gets destroyed, and it's such a shame. That stuff are genuinely priceless. Once you start to destroy history, you destroy the future. If you don't understand where we've come from and what's made us what we are today, you can't possibly hope to build on it for the future, in my book. I know Graham Hancock, Alex, I've actually met Graham Hancock, as well as read all of his books, most of his books. Not so much the recent stuff where he went down to the Amazon and got off his face on all sorts of toxic stuff. But yeah, I met Graham Hancock many, many years ago at a book launch in Sheffield, I think it was, actually. And fascinating guy. I love his early stuff. I really love the one he did with, is it Robert Duvall? He did a book on the Sphinx and the pyramids. I love that stuff. Love that. That was really good. Because I've always maintained, if you look at the Sphinx, it's the body of a lion and the head of, I can't remember who it was now, the whichever of the, the ancient Egyptian kings. But it's quite obvious that they've carved that face into what I'm absolutely convinced was originally A Fingerprint of the Gods, great book. What I'm convinced was originally the head of a lion. The Sphinx, as far as I'm concerned, originally had the body and the head of a lion, and then later on, much later on, the face of the pharaoh was carved into what was then the lion's face. And we know, Alex, you've read the books, the weathering on the Sphinx indicates that it is vastly, vastly older than the pharaoh's face. I believe that stuff is massively older, majorly prehistoric. I still think there's so much about this planet we don't know. I love all the theories about the great flood. They say, don't they, every species, every culture has a flood story, a flood legend, which seems to go back about 10,000, 12,000 years. And there's some evidence that brought an end to a level of civilization. I mean, why not? I don't think that's an impossibility at all. I think that's quite possible. Anyway, 9:45, ladies and gentlemen. All of that started from a question that I asked myself. Thank you all very much for watching or listening. Particularly if you got involved in the chat. Thank you guys, much appreciated. And I will see you next Tuesday on Rokk Review, if I don't do anything in the meantime, which is highly likely. Have a great week, and I'll have a great week with you. There you go. Can't be bad, can it? Take care, everybody.